On the back straightaway, into turn number 3, thick thin, still 3 wide, Brandon Feeney, high, wide, and handsome. He's going to go to the outside and get past Camillo.
I don't mean to be two birds and bees with you folks, but this is how cautions are born.
Welcome to a special episode of the Feeney Call. This is going to be one of a two-part series here as we lead into Peterborough Speedway's opening night. As you kind of know, I'm a Peterborough Speedway guy. I've been there as my home track every year I've raced. So we're kind of doing a little two-part episode behind the scenes. Tonight's guest will be Charlie Toner, the announcer at Peterborough Speedway. So he's the kind of guy that paints the audible picture for what you guys are watching on the track, kind of linking in the missing stories and stuff. Another thing I'm going to pop in is Jeremy Kelly has been kind enough to lend me some of his promotional videos, so I'm going to be able to link those into the podcast so you can see some of the stuff he's worked with Peterborough Speedway on from last year and possibly this year. I don't even know if they've been released yet. He just kind of said, take whatever you want. So I've taken a couple of videos. There'll be 2 on this week's. I'm going to have 1 on next week's, and then as well as our guest next week, Lee Stronko, plus Peyton and JP from Peterborough Speedway. I'm trying to work on maybe doing a giveaway for later on in the year, stuff like that. But yeah, long story short, yeah, tonight's guest is Charlie Toner. A little bit of a recap of my week. Crazy week this week. Thursday I was up testing with 88 Racing. Simon Charbonneau. Went pretty well. We made some adjustments on the car, fought some good, fought some bad, rebodied the car after they had a practice incident on Wednesday. I think everything went well. I believe I'll be working with them when the CTMP race is here in the May long weekend. Then on Saturday we went to go help Robert Cerner of Robert Cerner Racing at the CSC OR race, where he not only did well, he broke it at GT5 with his fastest ever lap time as we were there. And then he got to do a wet race for the first time on Sunday. I wasn't there for that, but and then he did a dry race afterwards, which he had a bunch of fun. He was very grateful I was there. I don't really know much about road course racing, but of course my first 2 crew days were left and right adjustments. But thank you to those guys for having me out. And after I was done helping Robert on Saturday, I headed down to Brighton Speedway. Took some photos, went and seen some couple guys I know for racing down there. Corey Halbert, one of our Jomo Media drivers. Dan Price, one of my best friends. Took some pictures, posted them up on my personal Facebook. But yeah, because we're going to have a couple promo videos in here for Peterborough Speedway, I'm going to cut this short for the intro. And the first video is going to be known as Offerings by Jeremy Kelly and the Film Kelly Group. right, our first guest of the Peterborough Speedway special, we have Mr. Charlie Toner, the voice of Peterborough Speedway. You might have seen his pretty face on the G-Force broadcast at the Auto Club Classic the last couple years. At the same time, you've been, I think, the announcer at Peterborough Speedway since basically I've been going there. So why don't we get how that
I
started?
can't remember how long I don't remember exactly what year. Um, oh, I'm trying to think of who the late model champion was the year before I started. And of course I haven't got a screen in front of me with everybody's name, so I can't remember her name.
Was it Amanda Conley,
Oh, yeah, Amanda Conley, yeah.
which is now Amanda Balson?
Yeah. So, but Amanda had won the championship the year before I started announcing.
And how did you get into motorsports announcing from what your day-to-day job was?
Well, I started in radio when I was 16, so that's like 40 some years ago now. And that was on a dare. So, but I've always loved racing. I mean, I think the statute of limitations has gone by, and I can kind of tell the story of my brother Jeff and I wanted to do some racing this one year, and we decided to just grab a couple of old junkers and put and I don't think the rules, I mean, we had to have a roll bar, we had to have a window net, but other than that, there wasn't a whole lot of rules. You couldn't have lights in it, but they were, to say they were stock, I drove the car to the track.
I
Took
did
the
that with a
lights
couple
out.
derby cars.
Yeah, I basically took the lights out, went out and raced it at Spud Speedway just outside Caribou, Maine.
Spud Speedway is very, fitting for the potato farmer of the toners.
Exactly. We were potato farmers in Grand Falls, New Brunswick, and the back of our farm was the US Canadian border. And I think I was 14, which would have, well, no, I would have been younger because Jeff was still in high school. So 12, 13 years old. And I drove the car through the woods, across the border, over to Spud Speedway, all the way around Loring Air Force Base to get there on back roads and woods. Basically, it's a half-hour drive from the house on the highway, but it took us like 3 hours to get there through the woods.
But it was well worth it though.
Well,
And
yeah, because I remember one night that both Jeff and I had won the only feature races we had ever won in our life. I was like stock and he was pro stock. And they did the trophies and celebrations at the end of the night where they called everybody up and you get to shake some champagne or whatever, or soda pop. And we were going to go pick up our trophies, and in come the Border Patrol and the state troopers looking for the guys that jumped the border. So we got in the cars and took off and went back through the woods and got back to the farm before anybody could find us. Well, for the next year and a half, every time we crossed at the Limestone Crossing, our trophies were sitting at US Customs right in the window.
I wonder if they're still there.
They probably are.
If these trophies are yours, come pick them up at Limestone Customs.
I mean, they knew who we were, they just couldn't prove it.
Well, because clearly you wouldn't leave the trophies behind, right? So back to the announcer for Peterborough Speedway now for many years.
Yep.
You've got to know a lot of drivers at a personal level. You'll walk through the pits and usually kind of get some stories as you walk through and make your way up to the tower and stuff like that. As
Yep.
well as sometimes stir the pot with some of those stories. Because you're a lot like me. Sometimes the pot needs to be stirred.
Absolutely. I
But
mean,
what are some of your favorite stories that you've kind of seen play out from the booth?
the biggest story I can remember, I think, was the pit road brawl during an Oscar Superstock at an Autumn Colors, where we had our announcer infield kind of stirring the pot, Glenn Butt. But I was up in the booth, and this was I can't remember exactly what racers were involved. You probably would remember. But, and I'm sure someone is going to comment who it was, but it was a full-on brawl between the teams and the drivers after what happened on the track. There was, hitting after the caution flag. I mean, they were going to be black flag no matter what, but it was one of those brawls and fights in front of the crowd where everybody was on their feet, and I'm hitting sound effects on the computer. Ding, 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 and in this corner, let's get ready to rumble. Just everything we could do to get the crowd riled up. And everybody remembered that for years.
As an announcer, that's your job, to take a situation, whether it's good or bad, and turn it into entertainment.
Exactly. And believe me, everybody was entertained. And John Baker Jr., I mean, anytime he is parked in the Dart Heating and Air Conditioning Victory Lane, you don't have anything to say that's going to top you. You just hand him the mic. And from me, and usually I've got, someone else going down to do that. And so I can kind of cue him up. I mean, before he even gets out of the car, and it's going to be entertaining.
Yeah, just make sure the mic is on and hand it to him. And make sure he's in the good spot of the victory
hand him
lane.
The mic, let him go. And most times he's got such a big voice that he could probably yell it out and the crowd would hear him.
To be fair, I feel like you could too, but like you toned it down on the mic.
I have to pull the mic away a lot.
So as technology's advanced as an announcer, obviously you've went from, I'd say, more radio style calling and stuff like that but now you're like working with like G-Force and you have that video aspect. Has that added any new like stresses to being an announcer, other than, make sure your hair's all done up nice?
Done. Just get a little extra layer of polish. Not really. It's just fun. That's my fun time. I don't think there's been very many pay raises, and largely due to the fact that I'm surprised I get paid to have this much fun.
And I can always tell, like I've always been able to tell when you're enthusiastic about a driver and stuff like that, because the way your voice will change. Like if there's somebody that's, let's say, a very, I don't want to say the word asshole, but like he's not really friendly in the environment and stuff like that, and he's doing well, you're still calling it as you would, but you're more dry. But if it's like one of the guys like that's like, or like say when I got my first win, you could hear like you were breaking up, like you were excited, you were emotional, and like it was like you can tell that you're invested in how drivers do. And is that just like the person you are, or is that just like you've seen all these stories kind of as they moved on, and it's like,
well, I'll put it to you this way. I think that I like to see a clean race. And if there's a driver out there that is well known and has repeatedly not been a clean racer, in my personal opinion. Okay, so this is, and I try not to let my personal opinion show. But yeah, I think that if there's been shenanigans for him to get to winner's circle, that he's caused others' demise to get there. That takes a little out of the good feeling drama that you want to have at winner's circle.
yeah, it takes enthusiasm right
Yeah,
out of
it
it.
takes some enthusiasm, and to be honest, I try to be very, even keeled, but you kind of have to work with the audience too. And if the audience is already PO'd about it, you're going to have a hard time to kind of convince them that this is an exciting moment. It's kind of a moment that draws out, some of the negative emotions of a crowd, which, by the way, whether you like it or not, this is it's a sport, but it's also an entertainment. And the entertainment side of it, you kind of have to have those valleys to have, to be on the mountain peak and appreciate it. So
I compare it kind of to like WWE. You have your faces and you have your heels, and you always need to have the battle between your faces and your heels. The
yeah.
biggest problem for guys like you is when all of a sudden they switch.
Which, that's happened. Um,
Well, it's even like for 2014 till probably COVID, my style was very laid back and it was very reserved. It was don't put the car at risk. And then I got the car off Tom Walters and it's put up or shut up now. And I got to make more aggressive moves if I want to win races. If I want to go for championships, I got to put the car to the outside and make it work.
and you know what? You did. I mean, you've had an impressive season every time, every year.
I've
Um,
had a lot of impressive broken moments.
a lot of impressive broken moments. Some moments where there's no way you should have been out there, but with some ratchet straps and bungee cords and duct tape, it's amazing what you can do.
It's right. The best part is I won't mention whose name it was because one thing I like doing is like update you on if I had a crash, what's happening to the car and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I've always done that, I think, since we've become friends and stuff like that, just so you have some context to give to the fans.
Yeah.
Because
And
you're
and I appreciate that from all the drivers because I get that from the farm grow guys. I get that from, a lot of the drivers that are out there. And to have those updates, that's just cool info that you can just kind of throw into the crowd, especially during autumn colors.
yeah, like middle of the 167, I'm updating you what's going on in the car that I've only driven once. And I'm like trying to give
Yeah.
you updates so you can feed it to the crowd so you know what's going on. But like I said, that best moment was when that car was literally held together by one ratchet strap, bunch of zip ties, duct tapes, and your co-announcer at the time was very upset that that car was going back out. And like, oh, he's just getting his start money. And then I start passing people because I was pissed off.
Got back up to third spot, like from being down a lap.
That was also the first night we allowed spotters and super stock at Peterborough Speedway, and we had that like 20 car pileup in turn two.
I
And I'm like,
know.
spotters help so much.
Yeah, yeah. That was the end of spotters for Superstock, I think.
No, they're still allowed, but I think it was a very big debate on the rest of the year whether we should have spotters.
Yeah.
But anyway, like I said, if you're, what do you like seeing in drivers, like as they move up from bone stocks or junior late models? What do you like seeing them as an announcer do? Not say only on the track, but off the track that kind of gets you more pumped up to be not only the announcer that calls them, but like a fan, because I know you're a fan of most of the drivers that are out there.
Yeah. I think it's always impressive, and I try to point out those drivers that they may be aggressive on the track, but when they get back in the pits, they're hopping out of their car and running over to somebody who didn't have as good of a heat race to see if they can help, and they will help, fix, or donate parts, or I've even seen donate a car. Especially if a championship is on the line and they may be out of the championship because they've missed some races. They'll donate their car to another racer to go out and finish his championship or race at autumn colors, or it's those, the on the track and off the track are two completely different mindsets. It's all business and racing on the track. Off the track, it's I can't race you if you're not on the track with me.
So I brought this up with the last episode with Impact that just came out on Friday. And then it was one of those things I'm like, a true competitor doesn't want a free victory. They don't
That's
want a
right.
default victory. They want to beat you and they want to earn it. Where I feel like the people are just kind of glory hunters were like, oh, they didn't show up. We're good. We won. Like it's
Yeah, that's an anticlimactic race, and really the fans don't want to see that either. I mean, the fans want to see a race.
yeah, it's no different than like so like if you're racing at Peterborough for the longest time, if you didn't win a championship or Oostholt ran, everyone's like, did you really get it? Because he just wasn't there. And
Yeah.
like even Sean Solomon will say that. He goes, Ryan wasn't there the entire time. So he goes, I don't know if I would have won it without Ryan but at the same time it was one of those moments like this year we raced against Nolan and stuff, then he missed tonight. I'm like, well, if one of us wins the championship, but he missed tonight, like that's not really exactly fair. But we were all trying to at the same time trying to stop him. But that car was fast.
Yeah, there were a lot of fast drivers, and you know, it was cool late in the season to see, you know, the Ryan Oosterholtz in the mini stocks coming back out and not racing for a championship for a year. You know, he started late in the season. He came out to have fun and to race. Yeah, he won a couple, but he didn't win some, you know, he didn't win them all. And there's that we've had a great bunch of years lately of new winners, a lot of new winners, a lot of first time winners, a lot of winners that they tried forever to win, you know, and then all of a sudden, what was it? I think it was 27 years.
Oh, Rick Warren's at Colors.
Rick Warren's at the Colors hadn't won for, oh, it was longer than that. It was like 47 years, whatever it was. He had never won a feature race ever. His first feature race was at the Autumn Colors Classic at Peterborough Speedway. I mean, for
You
a
can't get
traveling
much bigger
series
than
to
that.
have your first win there, that's amazing.
And it was for their championship night too, so it wasn't just like a fun run. Like, and like it wasn't like he had an easy victory. He had JBJ hunting him down the entire time.
Oh yeah, I mean the biggest names in racing were all behind him, trying to track him down, and JBJ, he was trying to make a hole. I mean, he was using that front Nerf bar as much as he could to try and make a hole. Warren's stuck to it.
I feel like as much as it is, if we're coming down to like the white flag lap, there's probably the person I trust the most behind me would either be JBJ,
Yep.
or for me it would also be Mark Gordon. So
Yeah.
just when I've never raced personally against JBJ, but watching one, but personally racing against Mark, me and him have always raced pretty respectfully with each other. I know
I've
other
seen you
people have
guys.
had it,
I've seen you guys trade paint, but
but it's been
the
like
last
door
two
rubbing,
laps are respectful.
but it's one of those things that we'll door rub and stuff side by side and be like tight racing, but like we don't usually move each other out of the way. It's and the one thing that I think bugged Mark for the longest time was I was the only one that could hang on his outside.
You know what? And I've maintained the drive. I'm going to be honest. The drivers that I see, especially in full body race cars, hanging on the outside at Peterborough Speedway, there's really only 1.5 grooves at that track
At best.
at best. If you can tune the car and have the balls to go right up by the wall on that outside line and pass, first off, it's a completely different setup to pass on the outside than it is where you're down on the inside, where you have a lot more opportunity to protect that lane. Because that is the fastest lane. But if you can pass on the outside, yeah, you're going to use up a ton of rubber. You're going to use up the car a lot. But if you're doing it at the right time of the race, you could be the one pulling the hardware home at the end of the race, and that's been seen time and time again. And I've seen guys win a race and they've left a black mark across the Peterborough Speedway safer barrier on the back stretch.
Or even be up the safer barrier on the back stretch.
Well, that's why I kind of call it turn 5.
Yeah. So my first year when I had the bus from Howie Crow,
you could climb the wall and it wouldn't do anything to it.
I tried. But that was the Autumn Colors where, so when I was learning how to drive V8s properly, the one person I was talking to was, actually there's two people I was talking to. It was JBJ, and it was Dan Archibald.
Yeah.
Because Archibald has 1,000 laps. He's actually a really good driver. It just
He's
sometimes
really
he
good driver.
loses his pin. We had him on the podcast and he goes, he even apologized to Colton because he just took it too far.
Yeah.
But
and that's Dan's problem. He does, the later in the season, he takes it too far. The beginning of the season, who is the first driver to do the gentleman's rule at the starter stand? Dan Archibald. You know,
And like I said, sometimes it's like he doesn't mean to do it, but I also find Dan is the guy that if you go up to him and you don't know him, he goes, "You're Dan Archibald. You're a dirty driver. You're gonna wreck me. Stay away from my car." He goes, "Okay."
You just painted a target on yourself by doing that, by the
But
way.
like if you so like when I started racing, that's when Dan was running that stainless steel Corvair body, or I
Oh
think he
yeah,
had.
that was a good
And
car.
I always, if he caught me down the same straightaway, I'd let him go because he caught me in a straightaway. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not
The
gonna
only,
keep him behind me.
the only thing I disagree with, the Corvair is it didn't have an engine in the front.
Yeah. But well, to be at the same time, we got guys with Fords with Chevy engines in them too. So
Yeah,
yeah.
but
But like I said, if anyone caught me like at really close speed, I'd let them go. I'd follow behind them, watch how they're racing. And usually with Dan, that helped me a lot because he gets around Peterborough probably as good as anybody.
yeah.
And that's where at the end of the season I was running that top 10 shoot it for the first time. I think it was first year we had it. When I qualified in that night, and they made it so you can't do that anymore. That's as the night starts, because there was a lot of mathematics involved. But yeah, I was leading that race for I think all but the white flag lap, and my sway bar broke off going into 3 and 4, and he got around me. But well, once again, everyone that doesn't know Dan paints a picture to him of being a dirty driver and stuff like that. And then because I raced him with respect, he races me with respect. I'm like,
I don't know if I've ever considered Dan a dirty driver. I'd say he's an emotional driver.
see, I'm the same. I'd say the same thing. Like, if you piss him off and you treat him dirty, he is going to give it back
Oh yeah, yeah, he is.
tenfold. Like, and but you know what? I'm the same way. There's guys have started treating me like crap, racing me like crap. I'll start doing the same thing now. It's like at a
But
certain
having,
point, you have to stand your ground.
but he's one of those guys that, if he's, been a little too aggressive on the track and caused some damage to somebody's race car, guess who's getting out of his car and going over to the other guy to see what he needs for parts or help or bring his crew over to help fix the car?
Yeah.
It's
And that's the
Ben
thing.
Dan.
That's it. He's actually one of the best guys around to have the track. I love Dan. He's helped me personally. Hell, he almost got to the point where I was fighting to win the Autumn Colors Classic a couple years ago in that super stock. Like to think that we're at the biggest race of the season. I was on 2 tires compared to everyone's 4 fresh for the weekend. I had my left sides were like the season long Peterborough tires.
Yep.
And I was fighting with some of the biggest names we have in Canadian motorsports of your Sean Chenoweth, your Rick Spencer Waltz, even the Lane Zardos. And like the fact that I was running up with them until I ended up getting spun out and freaking spinning somebody else at the same time. Like I ran up there almost all day after starting in the back.
Yep.
Like that was the biggest moment, and like all I could do was thank Dan. He goes, "You had that." He goes, "If they didn't screw you on the scoring to put when they put Walt down there," I'm like, "You didn't like bring that up to me then." I would have fought for that inside line all day long. But that was another thing. It was just there's I always seem to, for me personally, every time I switch classes, it seems to be the very popular class at the time where all the big names are moving to.
Yep.
Like I go to late models, everyone's trying late models. I go to legends, everyone wants to go legends. I go back to super stock, everyone's going super stock. But I love it because I get to drive against. So I was doing a count, and I think I was telling you this at Colors. If you go back in the 9 years I've been as a driver, some of the names I've driven against, the J.R. Fitzpatricks, the Gary Elliott's, the Tom Walters, like the amount of Hall of Famers I actually get to say, hey, I've got my ass kicked by them. I've beaten a couple of them, but I've got
Yep.
my ass kicked by most of them. It's a cool thing.
And you know what? When you start, talking to some of these Hall of Famers, which I've had the opportunity to just, either in the pits or in winner's circle, uh, they are a great bunch of guys, and they are humble and they're good, honest, hard racers.
All right,
They're
Charlie. So
fun to watch.
I'm going to put you on the spot quickly here because it's fun to watch you struggle a little bit. If you could do 5 things to help Peterborough Speedway from like your job as an announcer, what are 5 things you'd like to add in to try or improve or like maybe something you've always wanted to do but you haven't been able to because the tech hasn't been there or the manpower hasn't been there?
As the engineer, that I am. I mean, my day job is a broadcast engineer. I design, build, and maintain everything from the microphone to the light at the top of the tower for now stations across Canada. Um, so yeah, I would like to see a more of an investment in the tech, better microphones, better sound protection in the booth. Um, just a better way of monitoring in headsets, like proper race headsets, much like what we used with GeForce. You know, so a lot of the technology that GeForce is using, well, some of that, at least the audio side, that would be a perfect addition to the track. And I think we're going to get there. I know JP has done a lot of investments in the track, mostly for the fan base and stuff. There's a lot of things that are coming. He wants to invest in the sound system, and he's asked me the same question. And I'm always hesitant to say, well, hey, if you spend about $15,000-$20,000 in a sound system or more, that would be great. But I know that's not in the budget. So he runs a profitable business. And sometimes you have to sacrifice some things, but I know that there's going to be some changes this year on the sound system. We're going to try and improve it, and I'm going to push a little harder for it. So that's one of the biggest things that I'd like to do from up there. The other thing is perhaps get a license for a event transmitter. So there is a special category in the CRTC to get a license for events or for like much like stadiums and things like that. It's the same idea as a hearing aid transmitter, but put it out on a radio so that you could listen to it with a Walkman or radio or a portable radio. Or the other idea is to just stream it, which is you don't need a CRTC license for.
Yeah, because there's like you have your companies like the Track Tune and stuff like that, like Flamborough and that and Sunset are using. That you can have it all in like one place where they can listen to
Well,
you and Ben call the race over the app.
well, actually, you can. It's not that hard to get streaming software. I mean, there's freeware or public domain software to be able to stream. You set up a survey. If you get the internet at the there to do it, great. If not, well, then you pay a subscription to somebody like Trenton or Stream the World or whatever, or Triton or Stream the World. I guess is the same thing, but one of those carriers, and they can put it out to 10,000 listeners at a time. It's not a big deal, and they'll give you the metrics to show you that it's actually reaching people. So that might be the option to go to, and that's really easy to build. I can build one of those in no time.
Almost in your sleep.
Considering now I'm building them in the virtual environment and loading them up on the cloud, I mean, that's another option too.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot two more times. So I want to know who, as a rookie driver this year, either switching classes or coming into racing new, are you most excited to watch as a fan? And do you think in any classes we're gonna have like an upset victory as a champion this year?
Ooh. I have not been talking to many of the drivers this year, or any really, except for you and maybe a couple of them that I come across. But I think the super stocks might see a lot of new drivers, a lot of rookie drivers coming up from the mini stocks. Trying to think of trying to look into the crystal ball. It's almost like information overload. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of people have,
The wheeling and the dealing and the
yeah, there's a
momentum
lot
from
of
last
wheeling
year.
and dealing that has been happening off season that I'm not privy to yet. And that's going to be the interesting story. I mean, that's why opening night, I have to get there really early and go, stall to stall and find out what the new story is and see what I can bring to the mic.
Or sometimes you got to find out what car is being unloaded night to night.
Yeah, because I'll see a driver that's sitting in the crowd, sitting in the audience with the fans, and where's your race car? Oh, it's not ready yet. It's not ready yet. It's not ready yet.
One of my funniest stories, I think, was the year I started the late model. I unloaded the super stock one night, that's when I had the wreck and the motor and all broke out. And then I bought the late model to fix it all up. And then I showed up in the late model, like, when did you get a late model? I'm like, last night. And then,
Who was it? Was it you that had to rent a U-Haul truck one year?
yes, I had to rent a U-Haul truck and a U-Haul trailer to get to the track with my super stock with the bus. Um, just because my tranny broke in my Chevy Silverado that year. And it was,
Yep.
yeah, I was so close to fighting for the top 10 in points. And I've had a streak of every year I've been points racing. I haven't been under the top 10. So it was like, well, it's only money. We can make more tomorrow. So I rented that for a few weeks, and I was lucky enough that Paul Bounty, another great guy, um, lent me his roofing truck for the rest of the year to get to the track.
Yep. Yeah, Paul Bounty's a great guy. Of course, he's a Coburg guy.
Not now. He's a Bowmanville guy.
Oh, that's true.
He's moved, and I hear some. Let's say I know some privy information because now that I've joined the media side, because I know you were in disbelief at Autumn Colors, not realizing that I wasn't going to be racing this year because you realized I got a new car and it was. But unfortunately, it's not this year. Not saying it's not going to be happening again, but we'll be back out sooner or later, and then I'll have to bug you some more about catching Pokemon while driving race cars and stuff like that. I think that was one that threw you for a loop too, is when I sent you the Snapchat, or not a Snapchat, like a screenshot of me catching a Pokemon in the middle of a red flag. But
Hey,
anyway,
you never know when they show up.
well, if you leave it on, you get those walking kilometers because you're just moving in the same circle like 20 times. Anyway, Charlie, I thank you for joining me. Can't wait to see you here at opening night in a couple weeks.
May 2-4 weekend, baby. We're going to be all ready and rip raring to go.
Yeah, May 18th opening up. Um, Charlie's always full of stories. If you ever find him where he has time, stop him, ask him about some of his favorite stories or toner shenanigans. He's always glad to share with race fans. Or if you are an off-road enthusiast, Charlie's probably the guy that knows probably more trails than anybody.
I know a lot. Now you're going to be upset with me when you hear that I've sold the Jeep.
I know you sold the Jeep, but it doesn't mean you don't know the trails.
I do know the trails. I know the trails very well. I still have some recovery gear and wheeling gear kicking around here. And
And a new project I hear about.
yeah, it's still not in the yard yet. I'm still trying to get enough money put aside to make a significant purchase for the new project.
All right. Anyway, thanks for joining me tonight, Charlie. We can't wait to see you in a couple weeks here. And who knows, maybe I'll, if Ben takes the night off this year, maybe I'll pop up in the booth and we can have some shenanigans up in the tower.
Love to have you.